Greetings 111, welcome to our first video. This first video is just going to be a review of what some of the parts of the XY axes are called. It may be review, there may be some brand new terms that you haven't heard before. So let's just get started. So remember that the XY axes, or the XY plane, right, is the intersection of two lines, and then there's like some sort of gridding that happens after that. So let's see exactly what this might look like. So let's just draw a set of axes. Let's see if I can make it straight. Sort of straight. That's sort of close. So remember that this horizontal line here, this is called the x-axis. Right? And this vertical one here, this is called the y-axis. And the place where they intersect is called the origin. So the whole purpose of doing this is that this allows us to locate a point in like a flat plane, right? We're able to say, instead of saying, oh, there's a dot maybe like somewhere over here, we're actually able to give directions about how to get to that point itself, right? We don't have to say, oh, you sort of go over and up a little bit. You can actually give directions on how to reach that point. Right, and this system in general, when you have this x-axis and y-axis where they're perpendicular and they meet like this, this is what's called the rectangular or Cartesian coordinate system, right? So you can call it the rectangular, or sometimes also called Cartesian coordinate system. Rectangular because notice that the units we're going to use to describe how to reach that point are given by rectangular. I mean, they're literally squares, but at the very least it's rectangular. The reason for the word Cartesian is because of the mathematician who actually came up with this graphing system. His name was René Descartes, and he was a French mathematician who came up with the idea of graphing in an XY axis sort of way. So the plane or the flat area that's formed by these two intersecting lines is what's called the rectangular or Cartesian coordinate system. We should put an or here, right? So you don't have to call it both, but one or the other. But we more regularly refer to it as the XY plane, right? So this is also more commonly called the XY plane, right? Good. And so like I said, we can locate any point in this XY plane by describing its location using an ordered pair, right? So an ordered pair, what that is an ordered pair of numbers, right? And we usually write them in a very specific way. I think you've seen, remember, something like this, right? We've seen this ordered pair of numbers XY like that. That's the ordered pair which will describe the location of maybe that point, for example. We can keep using black. So that point right there can be described by an ordered pair, right? And of course direction is going to be important here because I need to know, do I go right or do I go left or do I go up or do I go down, right? So of course we have to decide upon a direction. We've decided as mathematicians in the community that this direction along the x-axis is going to be considered the positive direction. And this up along the y-axis is going to be considered the positive direction. And of course, alternately then, moving left on the x-axis is considered negative, and moving down on the y-axis is considered the negative direction also. So to describe how to get to this point, we always say where to go in terms of the x direction first, and then where to go in terms of the y direction. That's again to keep it straight, because we want to make sure that we all know that the first entry here describes horizontal movement, and the second entry describes vertical movement. So, for example, this point here could be located by telling everyone to move what? Well, pretend that that actually is vertical, passing through that line there. So we would move what? 1, 2, 3, 4 units to the left, and then to reach the spot by moving up, I would move up 1, 2, 3, 4 units up, right? So that point could be, its location could be described by saying move left 4. Left is negative, so negative 4, that's the x direction, comma, remember, has to be separated so we know which one's which, and then move up positively in the y direction, also 4 units. Okay? And again, it's important to have that order maintained, otherwise we're not going to know for sure that the first entry is the horizontal movement and the second is the vertical. Okay, the entries here are actually sometimes given special names. So if I were to write the ordered pair as xy, we sometimes refer to this as the x coordinate. My pen is not writing. There we go. And similarly, we could call y the y coordinate, right? Just so that we know. Right. Let's see, and again, remember that the x and y coordinates together represent how to reach that point when you start from the origin. Well, since the origin is at the middle, its ordered pair is fairly easy to describe, right? You don't move anywhere to be at the origin. So in terms of the ordered pair for the origin, it would just be simply written as go nowhere horizontally, go nowhere vertically, right? So that's pretty simple. We've just got the origin as 0, 0. Okay, we could also call this ordered pair xy here. We could call it an ordered pair, but we could also say that these are the coordinates of the point. Okay, and again, we can plot points by locating their ordered pairs on the coordinate axes on the xy plane, right? So if I say plot a point, I mean locate it on the xy plane. Okay, so we can maybe say the word plot equals locate on xy plane. Good. So let's see. Let's just describe what points look like that are located on the x-axis and the y-axis specifically. So notice that any points that are actually on the x-axis are located by only moving from the origin horizontally, either to the right or to the left. There is no vertical movement to get up or down off of, to move off of the x-axis here, right? So in terms of ordered pairs, any point that actually is living on the x-axis always has a certain form, right? So maybe we could say something like this, right? So points on the x-axis are always going to have a certain form, right? It's always going to be some sort of a number for horizontal movement and then always nothing, right, for that second entry. We don't want to move up or down. And alternatively, we can think similarly that points that are going to be on the y-axis then, right, points that are going to live here on this y-axis, well, to locate any point on the y-axis, you just have to move up or down to it. You don't move anywhere left or right. So it's going to be very similar. You move nothing left or right, and then you move some sort of vertical change, right? And that's going to help us later when we talk about things called x-intercepts and y-intercepts. Okay, the last important feature of the xy plane that we should talk about is the fact that having this x and y axis here, these two lines that intersect, it actually separates the plane into four spots, four sections, right? Notice that there's like four sections that it splits it up into, right? And these four sections are important. They have certain sort of characteristics for the points for x and y, and we want to call them something special, right? So let's pick a different color here. Maybe let's pick, how about bright red? That's good. Okay, so what we do is we call each of these four areas here something special, and they're called quadrants, right? So them together collectively are called quadrants. Okay, quad because there's four of them, right? Quadrants. And we label them with Roman numerals in a certain order, right? So if we remember that we label them in the following direction, you make a C, right? So if you remember how to make a C, hopefully you do, you move around, like in that fashion, right? So if I were to make a C, it would look something like this. Right? I would move around that way, right? So, and that's the order we label them in. We start here in this upper right quadrant, and we label that as quadrant 1. We move this direction, and we label this as quadrant 2. We move down and label this as quadrant 3. And we move right, and we label this as quadrant 4. Okay, we'll talk more about the quadrants as we move through this course, and you'll see interesting things happen with the ordered pairs, the coordinates that live in each of these four quadrants, right? But for right now, that I think will suffice for our review and introduction to some features of the XY plane. On to the next video.